seemed like Kyrie Wilson had one of his better games last week with the sack and tackle for loss. What do you think about his development just the last couple of weeks? Had a big game against the Dolphins as well.
That play he made on the jet sweep was probably my favorite play since he's been here. You saw the awareness before. He saw Sutton there, pointed it out, had some awareness, fixed his stance, got his eyes in the right place like we've been talking about in terms of defensive linemen coming from transition from college to the pros, getting their eyes in the right spot, let his key take him to the ball, and made a good play. So you could just see the progression is coming along. So I was happy for him.
How did you analyze how the young corners that had to step up and have to play some more time this week? How did they come out of this game?
They competed, just like we're going to have to do this week. It doesn't get any easier this week, with the guys that you have at Kansas City and the quarterback and the scheme they have there. So, but they went out there, they competed, just didn't fall the way we wanted to fall, but they went out there and competed. I love their toughness. I love their toughness, and they're willing to go on to the next play. But I'm happy about that. And then we just got to keep getting better every day.
Patrick, what makes Travis Kelce so difficult to defend? Every year, people think he's going to take a step back. You look up, he's got 68 catches again. Doesn't stop, doesn't lose a step.
Obviously they have a rapport, himself and the quarterback. So they're comfortable with one another, especially at that position, based on the route tree. Sitting over the ball, checking to the flat, things of that nature. Those are outlets for the quarterback. So naturally, I would feel like you're going to accumulate some receptions there. But the biggest thing that stands out, aside from just athletically, he's big, he can catch, he can run. The big thing is just the intelligence in terms of understanding how to sit down in zones, understand how to work away from leverage and man-to-man coverage. Those are things that I believe, from my experience watching the league, they get better as you get older. And then it's about taking care of your body and making sure that you can execute it. As long as your body's keeping up with your mind, those are all attributes that end up improving as you get older in terms of how to work leverage, how to use your hands, how to sit down in zone. So it's impressive.
There's that old saying that the longer you stay around, the more you end up seeing. Mm-hmm. In your career as a defensive coach in the NFL and now a coordinator, have you seen that position, just the tight end position, change in terms of how they're being used and how you guys are trying to devise ways to take them out of the game?
One thing, Coach taught me when I first got in the league is to know the history of the league. There have been a lot of good tight ends throughout the history of the league. So it's funny, some of the stuff that we're doing on defense, I'm talking about we in terms of the coaches in the league, it's stuff that, Bill and those guys were doing Jim Johnson, those guys, they were doing this stuff a long time ago. And then just in terms of the players, there have been a lot of good tight ends throughout the league. I was around one, a really good one with Gronk when I was in New England, but I don't want to single out anybody, but there were a lot of tight ends before this era that were doing a lot of good things. I know that.
I know you guys played KC before, and I think we talked about this at the time, but once again, the biggest play of the game for the Chiefs this week was Mahomes toward the sideline. Mm-hmm. Everybody kind of thinks he's going out, turns it into 20 more yards. I guess, how much of a challenge does that provide, and what is the coaching point on that for guys near the sideline? You don't want to take a penalty, but you don't want to let them turn upfield.
You got to do everything within the rules of the game, and you just got to close to good pursuit angles, and you got to force him. If he's going to go out of bounds, you got to force him out of bounds. You got to force him out of bounds. But the big thing is just being relentless. He forces you to be relentless with your pursuit in terms of the pass rush. I think their offensive line does a really good job of being aware of where he is and what he's going to do. You watch those guys; they make a lot of big plays. Similar to the one we had in the third quarter, the last game. I think it was Thuney who made a great play. In terms of how we had it. We had somebody accounting for Mahomes, but he made a good play. So, you just got to close with relentless pursuit, good angles, and you got to be ready to win because they're good. He's good. His old linemen, they're good. They know how to work with him. So it's a challenge.
You guys, it's a different year, different teams, everything else. But how much do you kind of show the guys what they did last year in this game, and say that you can have this kind of performance again?
Nobody's living in the past, but there's familiarity in terms of scheme. I've been here. This is my third season. This is my sixth time going against the Chiefs as a coordinator. I did it one time with the Giants. So, we're always, going back for, a frame of reference from older games. That's what we do as coaches. But in terms of the guys, they're just working on this week, and I'm sure we'll sprinkle in tape here and there from last year. But it's so week to week in terms of how the whole teams change. Some of the pieces are the same, but the team changes and how they attack you.
Coach, I asked JP this question, and I just want to hear your thoughts on this. Going back to the rookies, how much of the practice that you have, especially on a short week like today, focuses on them being mentally strong and prepared for a game, especially against a rival like Kansas City?
The way I learned it, these short weeks, and I'm about to go in there and explain to the players, you take care of your physical, in terms of getting your body right. Make sure you're focused on that. Make sure you're taking care of emotionally getting up for the game, because it's an emotional game. They got to get up for that. And I said, and you really got to trust me here in terms of trying to get you in terms of the mental part, in terms of tendencies and things of that nature. I'm going to try to streamline it so that you're not overdoing it. We got to kind of build them through there. And so it's kind of a combination. I'm here to help. The coaches are here to help with part of the mental part, but for me, the players is about getting their bodies ready for the game and really getting emotionally ready for the game in terms of getting up for a contest like this where there's a division opponent, it's a holiday, you're on the road, there's going to be some excitement. You got to emotionally be ready to go for that. And then, I got to charge back up too. It's just the same thing. It's a shorter week. You got to charge back up to be ready for that. So that's a big part of it.
Just a quick follow-up question. You mentioned the holiday, and obviously the holidays are always very special. So in that sense of being emotionally ready, does it go into effect with they have to realize like it's Thanksgiving but they're not with their families, they got to focus on the game? Is that still a thing?
I mean, I can speak for coaches, and I'm sure the players are the same. I don't celebrate any holidays till after, the season is just, I told you I do like Christmas, so I do give myself a few hours for Christmas, but holiday, no holiday, it doesn't matter, but, there's going to be, obviously, people are going to be excited about the day.
Chiefs are one of the best teams in the league at making sure they're in third and manageable.
Say it one more time.
Like they're one of the best teams in the league
Yeah.
at making sure they're in third and manageable and staying ahead of the chains. Like how important can negative plays and tackles for lost speed is trying to get them off track?
It's crucial. It's crucial. It's crucial. You get them off track. You get them off track. Get them to try to make them single. Try to eliminate one element, whether it's the run game, pass game, whatever it may be. But it's critical to do that. It's critical to do that because when they're able to do whatever they want, obviously they have one of the best players in the league at the quarterback position, one of the better coaches in the league. So we got to try to make them one dimensional as much as possible.
Last question, Zeke.
Coach, how much can you take away from the last time that you played those guys a couple of weeks ago? How much can really change in between 3-4 weeks?
The league, a lot of the coaches, they're creative. Sure, it's not so much change, it's about how the scheme is evolving. So it's just a little, you add a little tweak here and there. So, our scheme is evolving throughout the year. I'm sure theirs is going to evolve. They have players that, Hopkins has now been there for a while, and you can see the production with him. In terms of the backs, in terms of how they're using them a little bit different, in terms of carries and stuff. Hunt's getting more, and we'll see what happens with Pacheco. But, it's not true change. It's more about evolving. You just got to be ready to adjust within the game.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Or afternoon, I guess.
Scott, obviously have to change from Gardner to another quarterback to be determined at this point, I guess. How difficult is that, switching gears and now maybe trying to prepare two different quarterbacks for Friday?
Yeah, it's part of the challenge. This league, injuries are a part of it. Unfortunate what happened with Gardner. We got a short week, so obviously the timeline is kind of sped up. We're going to evaluate those guys. Ultimately, coach will make the decision on who we're going with. But yeah, you just got to get somebody ready to play in a short period of time. But there's nothing you can do about it. You got to control what you can control, and whoever that ends up being, they'll be ready to go, and we'll give them the best chance possible to go be successful.
Are there enough similarities between the two that you could build something that can fit both of them? Or
yeah, there's just enough. We have enough offensively that we can kind of play to our guys' strength as much as possible.
Seemed like last week you guys were having pretty good success running the ball, but the attempts weren't there. Is there a reason why you guys didn't lean more into the run game?
Yeah, that was one of the things looking back at it. Probably wanted to get a few more carries. We came out in the third quarter. We went a little up tempo. Unfortunately, had the turnover, and then had a couple runs after that, and then we just got in one of those deals where wasn't sure how many possessions we'd have left. So we were pretty successful throwing the ball. You know what I mean? We moved the ball throwing it as well. I think you look back at it, there was probably a couple there that could have run. We had the one negative run after the explosive run. They kind of set us behind the sticks, and then it's tough to run the ball in those situations. So that's always something that we look at. The one thing that I took from it positively was we had some good runs. So that's something that we can build on going forward.
Some of those maybe most impressive runs were by Sincere McCormick. What stands out about him? What allowed him to make an impact?
You see it all the time in this league. Guy that's kind of been on practice squad, been around a few years, really just kind of trusted the process, worked hard, and then when he got his opportunity, he made the most of it. He's got good vision. He was decisive, with his run reads, and Line did a great job of blocking people, and he saw it and hit it and was able to gain yards.
Brock Bowers is drawing more attention from defenses and drawing their better defenders. What are you guys doing, I guess, to try and make sure that he can still get some touches, maybe more than he had last Sunday?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had 10 targets, and they did. I mean, we were still trying to get it to him, even with Surtain on him. They put Surtain a lot. And that's, things like that are going to happen. We can move him around a little bit more. We have moved him around, and we can do more of that. The one thing, though, that happened, it was good to see. You got a guy, Jacoby had 121 yards and Tuck had 82, so those guys stepping up when they're putting a lot of focus on Brock, that helps everybody. That helps Brock, going forward, but also just, our offense moving the ball.
It's got the heritage of the offense that you work with your father and Don Coryell. Tight ends have always been a pretty big part of it. You guys have had some Hall of Famers at that position. But has that position changed over the years in terms of how you guys are utilizing them, or are we just kind of caught up in the moment?
No, I think it has. I think a lot of it has to do with the individual. Different guys are going to be able to do different things. I mean, Brock, is unique that he can do a lot of different things. He's split out sometimes, and again, he's drawn the team's best corner and coverage. It's, obviously a future Hall of Famer, but like when I wasn't there, but when my dad coached with the Chargers, and they had Antonio Gates, and he's a different player than Brock, but as far as a receiving threat, obviously he was a team someone that everyone worried about. So yeah, I think based off of the skill set of the tight end, that you've had over the years, then it just determines the different things you can do with them. And then we always try to be creative and try to look and see what other people are doing, and maybe someone is doing something it's not a tight end, but we think, hey, we can put Brock on this, or Mike even, or just try to kind of keep evolving and keep moving forward in that direction.
Is there anything that the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that they do, and we've looked at that. In the off season or from week to week, something that pops up when you're kind of doing your film study.
Scott, you mentioned you guys had some more successful runs than in the past. Was there anything differently you guys were doing up front with the offensive line to create those opportunities?
I don't know if it would say different. I think those guys have done a great job. 2 games in a row, the same 5 guys playing. I think Coach Philbin's doing a great job with those guys about just the fundamentals of pad level, double teams, making sure we got hat placement, all those types of things. I think the communication's been good, and I think they're playing fast. Playing fast, and then just trying to build a little bit of confidence. And when you have some runs like that, that helps that as well.
Obviously, the first week was pretty chaotic. Everything kind of, all the changes that were made before that. Did last week feel like it slowed down a little bit, more normal?
I don't know if necessarily that's the case. It was still, it was a little bit more normal because it was a normal weekly schedule, but it's still, to me, the way we're approaching this is just one week at a time, so I guess however many games we have left now. So it's just, 1 week seasons, and so every week's different. Obviously this week's a little bit unique because of the schedule. We got to travel and we play on a Friday. So, but it's the Chiefs. We know them, we know, kind of have a little bit idea what to expect, and just going to go get a plan together and go play.
Scott, as the pass game coordinator the past couple of years, you had a more of a personal relationship with Aidan. What about him stood out to you in terms of him being able to come in kind of cold last year like he did, and then potentially this weekend?
Yeah, he's a confident guy. He has a really good personality. Like, he's really good with the group. He's not, from your guys' perspective, you probably don't see him as overly vocal, but in the huddle, he takes control. Works extremely hard. Football's really important to him, and he's really smart. He has a good football IQ, feel for the game. So the guys, I think immediately had a respect for him, just the way he approaches his job. So for him to go in there, they know that if he says something, then they know that he knows what he's talking about. And the guys will listen. And he's got a little natural leadership to him that way. I think he does a great job of throwing the football. He makes quick decisions, so the ball comes out, and he has the ability to push it down the field a little bit. So if we feel good about Aidan and he's good to go, then I'm excited to see where this process leads.
You have a. What have you seen out of Desmond as well in the past month plus he's been?
Yeah, same thing. He's kind of a fiery guy. As a quarterback, you can tell he's very competitive. He stepped right in there, and not ideal situation, and was able to move the ball. I know we would have liked to finish that drive better, but this is his third team, but it's only his third year in the league, but he has a veteran presence to him. Understands what it takes, to succeed as a quarterback as far as off the field and doing what's asked of you. And a little bit different skill set, obviously, but mentally, he's serious and focused.
You have a 10-year vet and Amir Abdullah, who's seen the end zone twice in the past 2 games. Just wondering, one, how much does his experience that he brings to the game help some of the younger running backs? And in addition to that, just how implemental is it to get him more involved in the game? Yeah,
Amir is one of those guys that has a wide skill set. He can run, he can pass pro, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Both of the touchdowns have been on receptions. He had a couple nice runs in this past game as well. But no, he's another guy, he's here every morning with his routine early morning and keeping his body ready to play, as an older player. I think the younger backs kind of see that as someone that they can emulate, because I think they all want their career to last that long. It's tough, especially at that position in this league. So, he's always kind of ready to go. He can fill in at any different aspect, and we're going to continue to play multiple backs. We're not going to just lean on, one guy. We might lean on the hot hand if it's going, but they all have different skill sets. I mean, like we talked about Sincere, he did some nice things. We'll see more of him. We'll see more of Amir and, some other guys as well.
Awesome, guys.
What have you seen from Steve Spagnuolo and his time in Kansas City that's helped make that defense so successful?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great coach. I've, gone against him in the past. He likes to be multiple with the defense. Obviously the pressure packages. He's got an elaborate pressure package, but it's not just that. I mean, it's just solid defense. They do a great job, giving you different looks. Obviously, 95 is a great player, so you always got to be aware of him and account for him. But no, he's really built that thing up, and those guys, you can tell they know what to do. The linebackers do a great job of getting everybody lined up, and then obviously making plays as well. But they're flying around, they play fast, and you can't make mistakes because they'll look to capitalize.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Prediction, UNLV, UNR?